Thank the member for Durack. The question is that the bill be now read a second time. I call the member for Lyon.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I rise to speak in favour of the Agricultural and Veterinary Chemical Legislation Amendment Bill. Now, this bill, Mr Deputy Speaker, it's critical for agriculture in Australia because there are 11,700 medicines that are used in agriculture that control pests and disease. These chemicals and medicines protect crops and animals, allow them to grow to their full potential. It also facilitates health in our pets, in our gardens, and indirectly and sometimes directly us as well, because some of these chemicals and veterinary products run parallel in the medical industry. Mr Deputy Speaker, could you imagine the loss to our food and crop production if the regulatory burden in the current legislation suffocated the use of these chemicals which have already been registered, analysed to the nth degree and declared to be safe? It would be devastating. CropLife estimates that 68% of the crop production in this country depends on these approved chemicals to control the pests that could ravage a crop of wheat or maize, chickpeas, you name it. If we don't have those, the ability to control pests and disease, our broadacre cropping could be devastated. Yields could drop exponentially. And that is the possibility if this regulation of re-registration every year were to mean some of these crops, some of these chemicals had to go through the whole process again. In the beef and dairy industry, control of parasites would be very difficult because most of the parasite control is with pour-on chemicals and drenches, which all go through this registration process. We had an election commitment. We committed to the Australian public that we would reduce red tape, and if there was ever a case of red tape, you only need to look at the current registration. We will, by these sensible amendments, will prevent the automatic expiration of active constituent approvals and remove the need to continually reapprove and re-register these active constituents on an annual basis to a much more reasonable 7 years. Chemical product quality is still protected, though, with these amendments. The Australian Veterinary Medicines Authority can request analysis to ensure the chemicals in these products are exactly what they say they are. Still controls the packaging, the advertising and the labelling and ensures that it's all accurate. These amendments allow variations to be done at the discretion of the Australian Veterinary Medicines Authority. It allows product registration details and information that is held with the authority to be provided to those that have the appropriate access to the intellectual property, and also allows the owners of the intellectual property to know the details of the status of their registration. And there is a cost recovery mechanism involved in this to be paid by the recipient of the information. Now, Mr Deputy Speaker, I'd like to make an analogy to the New South Wales driver's licence. They recently extended registration for safe drivers to up to 10 years. If you're a safe driver and you're not breaking the road rules or involved in accidents and you've demonstrated that you're a good, safe driver, they'll give you credit and you only have to renew your licence every 10 years. With the current legislation, having to renew these many chemicals every time their registration renewal falls due would suffocate the industry. it would suffocate the industry that depends on them for their well-being. They still have to be analysed, tested, proved to be safe, but none of this, well, I hasten to say potentially malevolent red tape is removed by these amendments, so that we still have quality, we still have oversight of a very effective authority. The recipients of the chemicals, namely the crops, the animals, know that it's safe. Humans that come into contact get all the information that they need, and our agricultural sector will continue to flourish. I would just hate to think of the devastation it would happen if these products that have been around for years and years, have been through numerous analyses and registrations, it would drop off and have to go through the whole re-registration process, which is a costly and timely procedure. Can you imagine the cost of the chemicals? The chemical companies would have to pay an awful lot of money to go through that process if they were ever to fall off the register. I would not like to be a chemical company supporting our agriculture under this legislation. As I drive around the area of the Manning, where we have a quarter of the state's milk supply being produced, could you imagine the implications if they weren't able to drench the animals, control parasites? The milk production would drop off. The same in the beef industry. You only have to look at an animal that hasn't been drenched and see the growth in those compared to those that have been looked after by their owners. Applications in the aquaculture industry in the Gloucester Valley. They don't need many chemicals, but those that do are simple and proven to save. Imagine if they had dropped off the register and the company couldn't afford to go through the expensive re-registration process. Wherever I go around the electorate, we do have an agricultural industry that is vibrant. It is under tremendous cost pressures. And to make all their chemicals that foster and encourage the growth of their products would just be, for many, the final straw that breaks the camel's back. So, Mr Deputy Speaker, can I commend these amendments to the House? They're safe, they're sensible, there's still good oversight by the authority. All the information will be accessible, assuming that there's no intellectual property issues. The registration will be clear, transparent. Simple amendments can be put through by the authority in limited circumstances. So the Australian public and the agricultural and the cropping industry should be reassured that there is due oversight of this important part of their business. And I commend the legislative amendments to the House.